Ladies and gentlemen, we are very pleased to welcome Congresswoman Deborah Ross of the United States House of Representatives. She represents North Carolina's 2nd District in the United States House of Reps, serves on the Judiciary Committee. She has a long-standing focus on constitutional issues, democratic institutions, technology innovation, and global competitiveness. And I know that she's had close relations with European ambassadors trying to explain America to Europeans in the last few months. Before Congress, she worked in civil rights, ran the ACLU, and so she has a great understanding of what's going on in America and how things are changing. Congresswoman, thank you for joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be with you. Wish I could be there in person.
Thank you. Next year.
Next year.
Next year. Congresswoman, let me start with the U.S. elections of last Tuesday, November 4th. Europe follows the American elections very closely, and everybody's talking about Mamdani, less so about what happened elsewhere in New Jersey and Virginia and California. But what should European observers take away from these elections?
Well, there is no question that this was a wave election. That's what we call it, when the percentages of victory flipped from Republican to Democrat, and then the margins were much larger than we thought. And I know people paid attention to New York, but remember, New York is a Democratic city. So New York is really a picture of some of the struggles within the Democratic Party. The question really is, what is going on between the parties and with the growing number of unaffiliated voters? And so what we have seen, and the governor's races in Virginia and in particular in New Jersey showed this, is that in areas that are up for grabs, could go either Democratic or Republican, and probably went for Trump a year ago, the resounding advantage now is for the Democrats, but not for a Mamdani Democrat. Okay. So in both of those races, the women who won had military or intelligence backgrounds. They're very centrist, no nonsense Democratic women.
Almost a conservative Democrat.
A more conservative Democrat, I would say center-right. Okay. Center-right Democrat. Of course, very progressive on public education, women's rights, civil rights, but more center-right on economic issues, of course, on public safety issues. They both, one was in the intelligence community, another one was in the military. They're both mothers.
But putting it all together, Congresswoman, do you as a Democrat feel that you now are better positioned for the Democrats to conquer the House of Representatives in the midterms in November 2026? And do you think that the redrawing of districts by the Republicans and the Democrats now will be a factor next year?
So I think that the very few seats, and we're really only talking about fewer than 20 seats, that could go either way, are much more advantaged for the Democrats because of the messages that we saw working in Virginia and New Jersey. And even in North Carolina, where I'm from, it goes both ways. And we saw Democratic sweeps in the suburbs, in the areas where people are less politically charged.
So would you say you're optimistic that you can, or confident?
I am very optimistic. The last time this kind of thing happened was in 2018, and we picked up 40 seats, many seats that we didn't even expect to pick up. But we only need to pick up 3.
That was the midterm election in the first Trump term.
Correct. That was a midterm election in the first Trump term, clearly rejecting his first year. And now the country has had an even larger, let's just say, dose of what Trump can do to our country.
Let me ask you about civil rights in America, and I guess democracy. Is it exaggerated to say that American democracy is under threat from Trump? Is that just a slogan? Or do you feel that the 9 months of Trump have somehow cut back normal civil rights for women or minorities?
Let's be clear. This country hasn't gone backward on civil rights in more than 100 years. And that is exactly what has happened under the Trump administration. It also happened in the Supreme Court because of Trump appointed judges from his first term, and that was on abortion rights. It has gone backward on voting rights, civil rights. It has gone backward on the rights of immigrants. It has gone backward on the rights of women, and it has gone backward on the authority of Congress. It has also gone backward on having limits on presidential power, which is something, as our European friends know, was something that this country was founded on.
Right. It's a big issue that, but I have to move on. Let's get your take on the tariffs. Have they been good or bad for the American economy? And I mean, the data shows they've increased inflation and unemployment. And that leaves the Federal Reserve in a dilemma as well for what to do about interest rates. But what's your analysis of Trump's protectionism and its effect on America and the world?
Well, the tariffs have been terrible for the American economy. Only certain very discrete sectors have benefited from the tariffs. But by and large, small businesses, any international companies have severely been hurt. I have many international companies in the research triangle. They've talked about the difficulties of navigating the tariffs. They've decided, because of the tariffs, that they may not invest as much in the United States. So we've seen costs go up. We've seen people laid off of jobs. We've seen businesses close. And this is one of the few areas where there are Democrats and Republicans asking the U.S. Supreme Court to rein in Trump's actions. And they're clearly illegal actions. We just had that argument before the Supreme Court this week, and it appears that both the conservative and the liberal justices are very skeptical of Trump's authority in this area.
So here's the real question. What happens if the Supreme Court, in a month or 2 or 3, when it gives its ruling, in a few weeks probably, between now and Christmas, we assume, when it gives its ruling, what happens if it declares the tariffs illegal? What does the White House do then? What does Congress do then?
Well, Congress is the only body that can enact tariffs. So Congress reclaims authority. And as a matter of fact, Congress has been voting against certain of these tariffs. I'm sure that many of the people at this conference have seen that. But then the Trump administration loses its leverage and must rescind many of the tariffs. Now, if there has been an agreement, the question is whether or not the countries that have agreed to certain tariffs want to reopen that situation, or whether they just want to leave things as they are.
Just to be clear, the European Union agreed to a tariff of 15%. If the Supreme Court says that's not legal, although Trump can probably in some sectors like auto declare a national security emergency under Section 232 of the Commerce Act, but that takes months. But effectively, Europe could say, we're not agreeing to the 15% anymore, and they would be legal. And Switzerland, which was tariffed 39%, go away, or Trump keeps them. What happens to a country like Switzerland?
Well, I think it really depends on how Switzerland responds. And so the tariff becomes illegal, unenforceable. And then the question is, do some of the people who have agreed to tariffs say, well, we will do this kind of negotiation again in the way that we used to do it. And so it will be chaotic, but I do believe it will settle out in the right way. And I will tell you about Switzerland. I have a Swiss company that recently came to my district, and I don't know if they would have come had they had that kind of tariff when they made that decision in the first place.
Are you allowed to disclose their name?
Well, it's a drug manufacturer.
Is it like Hoffman La Roche or Novartis?
Well, why don't we just move on from there? We can all Google it.
Okay, so Swiss investment in your district in North Carolina is possible.
Yes.
Ukraine, it looks like Trump is wavering in his support for Zelensky. It's hot and cold. He won't send tomahawks. He's saying the Europeans have to pay for everything. Is this war in Ukraine going to end? And is there anything Trump can do that will end it, in your opinion? Does he want to end it? Or does he just want to do business with Putin?
I believe that Trump wants the war to end because he wants to be considered a peacemaker. But I don't think he knows how to end the war. One thing that has been very heartening and I think very positive is that the Europeans have taken a lot more responsibility for their mutual defense. I've been meeting with many of the ambassadors throughout the war in Ukraine. I was co-chair of a study committee on Europe. And I'm very heartened that Europe has done what it's done. But we all know that the United States is the strongest member of NATO. And the United States should and can help in this endeavor. And I think Trump wants to have it both ways. He wants to be a peacemaker, but he does not want to anger Putin. And he respects Putin in a certain sense, except when Putin publicly embarrasses him. And when Putin embarrasses him, that's the best opportunity for the Europeans to win him over. I think Zelensky has tried to work this situation, but Trump does not want to commit troops, more personnel in a situation where he doesn't feel like he has full control.
Let me get straight to the point. If Putin were to violate NATO territory, not just with drones and as he has recently, but with some incursion in the Baltics or somewhere, would President Donald Trump respect Article 5, in your opinion?
I can't say. I hope he would, but I do believe that the Congress would. And remember, it is up to the Congress to declare war. And there is a clear majority in Congress for winning the war against Ukraine and for honoring our commitments to NATO. That is bipartisan. And there has been a lot of Republican condemnation of how Trump has approached this war.
Well, Congresswoman, let me close with an important question, perhaps the most important. You're speaking before a European and international audience. The question they asked me, I'd like to hear your answer. It's always, what's going on in America? Has it really changed under Trump? Will that change be permanent? Is American democracy under threat? Is America no longer the friend of European allies? Are we just in a temporary aberration? What's going on in America?
So what's going on in America is that by a very slim margin, America elected Donald Trump to his second term. And they did not know what they were going to get, even though he told us with Project 2025 and so many people who refused to work with him anymore, who were in his first administration. And once he got that power, he has been abusing that power left and right. And he has been intimidating Congress. I think we had a wake-up call on Tuesday for members of Congress that they cannot abdicate their responsibility to Donald Trump. But let me be clear. The vast majority of people in the United States do not like what Donald Trump is doing. The vast majority of people in the United States want to preserve our relationships with our allies. And what we have seen is in an election that usually would be a low turnout election, people are showing up and making their voices heard. And we've seen them having their voices heard in the streets with these No Kings rallies. I hear them in my office, and we are going to have a reset. But it will be a painful reset because we have the Trump administration for 3 more years. And he and the people around him have no respect for our Constitution and are willing to destroy many of the things that actually do make America great. But the resistance is strong, and Tuesday certainly has emboldened everybody from, people who voted for the first time to little old ladies showing up at rallies. We can take our country back.
That's a very charismatic statement, and I respect it, and you're a Democrat. But my last question, and a brief question, brief answer is, so when are the Democrats going to have some leadership?
Well, I believe the Democrats have had the leadership because we helped these voters understand what was at stake and carried these elections all over the country. We flipped a Republican legislative seat in Mississippi. We won statewide races having to do with energy policy in Georgia for the first time in 20 years. So clearly, people are trusting the Democrats to have their best interests, particularly their economic interests at heart, but many other things. We just have to keep doing it and keep proving it. We cannot sit on our laurels. This is the beginning of taking back our country, not the end. And we have got, as some of our leaders say, we are in a more is more environment. We have to do it every single day to prove that we are the people who can help this country regain its stature and regain its prosperity.
Congressman Deborah Ross, Democrat from North Carolina, thank you so very much for joining us at the Lugano Global Forum, and we hope to have you in person next year.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the forum.